by the way, we have a number of NRP team members in the room, Manish himself included. Miroslav Loka is sitting here, and we have the real builders of this tutorial. So, but if you can get up, wake up. Sergey, Pedro, Ishmael, they're in the audience. And our intent for this tutorial was, again, we only have half an hour. If we can make you log on to NDP, get a Jupyter notebook. If you want to open your laptops, now is the time. It takes bending your leg a little bit to open the tables. You need to sort of... so if you want to stretch, it would be a good opportunity. So our goal here is to at least give you a sense of how does it work. You know, if I had a service and if I were to upload a document into that service that I care about, how can I do it? And, you know, this is sort of the minimum that can be done with an LLM service. But I think hopefully it's going to be a good experience. And as I mentioned, we are using a community LLM called Climate GPT. It was trained on 10 billion web pages and open access academic journals on climate change. And 7 parameter models were built with 300 billion tokens. I mean, if you know those numbers, hopefully this shows this is kind of a small LLM. And its capabilities are aligned with that size. And models are available all through Hugging Face. A lot of LLM models that are trained, community LLMs openly, are available on Hugging Face. And there are other versions of this model. And it's built on the Llama 2 architecture. So our hope in the future will have those stovepipes of different types of LLM architectures built into the backend of these services. And, you know, we'll provide some of the LLM training service as a capability as well. And so, as I mentioned in my advertisement, adding near context to Climate GPT is the goal of the tutorial. And we'll load the LLM in the steps and test it. Test that we loaded it, and we'll upload, so to say, the NEAR task force report to it and compare the performance of Climate GPT with or without that context. So we hope this will be simple, and I'll attempt to go through it with you. Actually, maybe I won't, because it's going to be back and forth. So let's try it if it works well. What I'll ask you to do is to go to nationaldataplatform.org. And if you have a question at any moment, please raise your hand. Our team members will find you to handhold. But I hope it is very straightforward and won't require handholding. Nationaldataplatform.org. And then you go and log in. You'll need Wi-Fi for this part of our programming. No Wi-Fi?
Talk to the I got Wi-Fi. Yes, UCSD does too.
Guest Wi-Fi should work. Or Eduroam. And then we can take a minute or so for everyone to be on it. If you're already on the network, you can use your CI logon institutional SSO access and select your identity provider. You'll need that .edu for this one for the time being. Also, I should say NDP comes with a warning because 6 months ago it was a concept. So it's really 2 quarters that we have been building this for, and a lot of it is in prototype or demo mode. And we call it beta because we are actually getting some real users, believe it or not, in this form. But definitely this is this is the first time this many people are even at the same time logging into it. And we tested, yes.
Yeah, just a warning, I encountered this with UCSD Research IT with a new domain name that's not a year old. If they start getting hit a lot, they could end up causing
Okay.
trouble.
So we are hoping that's not going to happen today, because we tested it automatically to log in and everything. It should be fine. But, you know, just a word of caution. Great.
Try signing in with different account.
And institutional credentials, and I'll log in and show where I'm at. Once you log in, we'll go and start with the Jupyter Hub. But for a second, I'm going to actually open a browser myself and try to move it. Maybe I'll log in and come back, because then I won't see what I'm doing very well. Is there anyone who is able to log in? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, we have at least some people following. Even Frank did it. So,
Just being really slow.
yeah, unfortunately. Mine also took a while to come back. It's the network, I think. But, you know, we are testing equity in the Cal IT too. So we click on Jupyter Hub. And here, when you're at the Jupyter Hub, you're going to pick LLM-Service client. So there's, as you see, LLM training that has GPU nodes. The service client is minimal. There's no CUDA. And it can run on one core for this tutorial demonstration. And as I mentioned, this capability actually is possible if you contact the team to update and fine-tune an existing model, saving it and publishing it on the location of your choice. And we'd love to work with you to create some examples of that together, if anybody's interested in doing that here. And once we ask for that, it will actually take a minute or so. So maybe I should have done that before. I feel like Steve Jobs. I'm really doubting the decision of doing a live. But that's where we're at. And the slides will be available. This tutorial will be available online. If you're not able to do that now, we would love to hear from you what your experience was with it. And once that comes up, you'll be in the Jupyter Hub on NRP. Then we'll give a applaud to NRP for giving us the resources. I'm of course joking, but this is transformational. For me as a researcher, in my own research has been transformational from the beginning over the last 10 years. And I worked in the fringes of scalable computing always with distributed workflows, and having Pacific Research Platform and, you know, everything after that has changed it so much for me and my students, my team. So Larry and Tom, I don't see Tom, but this really, what you started here, I think is transformed at least my research as well. And once we are there, Oh, I got a gateway timeout. So, I'm looking at Dima.
What's the main space? So NDP?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes. Of course, no, I can't do two.
So John Graham started.
Oh, I think I got. No. Okay. So, anybody able to open the Jupyter Hub? No. Okay. Let me take us forward, and hopefully some of us will be able to get on in the meantime. And in a way, we expected this could happen. So we have, automatically this worked, by the way, when we tested logging in and starting. So hopefully we'll be able to resolve some of it during the tutorial. So once you get there, you'll be basically opening a Jupyter notebook. The notebook has two parts. The first part, you can run in Jupyter Notebooks the cell by Shift-Enter. And it will help you set up your runtime environment for the notebook. And it's going to build a couple of functions. One of these functions are to conversationalize the context with your audience. And you can start asking questions. There are some example questions. You can, of course, come up with other questions. And when you go to the second part, you'll be given also a node in the cell that adds the NAIR task force document to it. And you can have conversation with both modes of with the NAIR context, without, and you could see some results. I just yesterday took a screenshot where pre-context NAIR actually stood for North American Interfraternity Conference. And after that, we were able to get actually some reasonable responses about NAIR. That said, as I mentioned, this is a 7 billion parameter model. So it's not, and with large document, especially the larger the document goes, the more it gets confused, this type of models. There's some of those in it. You can make it fail really fast. But the idea is really being able to do that. And now, hopefully, once you go through it, you'll have a meaningful experience to start thinking, what I can do with it, or what other things. As you think through those things, we'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to be a part of it, we'll also have a user needs assessment session on how the research community and educators would like to use LLMs, so we can actually build those workflows and some services to help with those workflows into the platform. Or work with the groups who are building these services to develop and deploy those to the platform. And once you're done with the demo, if you'd like, the changes you made, as you make those changes persistence, there are two options. You can drag and drop them or save them in your user persistent storage, and it's gonna stay there as long as NRP lets you. I think you're familiar with those policies. But if you'd like them forever, download them. What we will also provide over time is a GitHub or other types of functionality to publish these. In some also cases will help with containerization of what you develop, so they could be already deployed as service. So those are the things that we are working on coming up. And as I mentioned, You could also use the setup code to host your LLM within your local server locally. So develop these things locally and push to NDP and NRP later. So if you're interested in that, again, we'd love to hear from you. And there are some other example notebooks to localhost integration of what you're seeing as a service. And once you're done, click on File, select Hub Control Panel to stop your server. So that sort of completes the whole tutorial, and the slides will be available to you. And we'd have no luck probably bringing up an instance, maybe. Do we?
The hub is running with limit.
One limit.
1 gigabyte limit.
Oh, is that why?
I think it's more for this.
Okay, but there's a hand up. Okay. Progress.
I can, let me add more. Oh, yeah, there are more people.
So I am having more progress or more success tethering to my phone.
Oh, so from your phone you were able to, this is a general experience with wireless, I think, lately. Any questions? I think we are at the Q&A session of our tutorial.
We need the link to
The slides, yes.
I'm almost logged into my institution.
Okay. Live tutorials, definitely, and the network access is something that hard to get around. Yeah. Yeah. And this has my contact info. Of course, ndp@sdsc.edu or any of our team members you're able to reach. As I mentioned, this is a collaborative effort of a large team, the whole NDP platform. And we hope to, again, provide careful expansion into the platform. It's still a pilot effort, and we'd love to work with the community to do the needs assessment and application code design together. I'm going to probably give up on... I thought maybe we had a fighting chance for a minute there. Any questions before I... Oh.
Yeah, hi, Ilkay. So I'm working with a few of our researchers on campus, and we are trying to build a data commons for multi-scale Earth observations. Everything from like local LiDAR, drone images, satellite images, and longitudinal data. Mm-hmm. Is this something, so my first question is, are there sort of converged data sets like this out there? And is this something that would fit and dovetail in with the national data platform? So
NDP catalogs data in a storage facility. And you had a success. Oh, we have a success. Yay. So I'll bring it up.
I'm using my phone, so.
Oh, through your phone?
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
I'll probably have to go get my
could you
phone.
do the tutorial phone?
Let me answer your question.
Thanks, Frank.
So I think that yes is the short answer. We want to be in a position to aggregate data like yours, like other institutions, onto OSDF, and then, as Ilkay described, catalog them in NDP. So Ilkay is really about federating and being able to find the data and all that kind of jazz.
Yep.
Okay.
Whereas OSDF is really a layer underneath it that wants to store the data. And so either, and we should have that conversation, there's basically fundamentally two options. We can bring you in as an origin of the data and you eternally will serve it. Or we can if some of the data is actually data that comes from elsewhere, that has an original, say it's data that is from NASA, from NCAR, or somewhere else that you want, we would rather than keep your copy. We would then rather keep the original copy.
Yeah. Point to the source.
And point to the source. And so, or there is and in some cases, when we point to the source, we would like to have the source integrated. For example, NCAR's catalog of data that they share with the world will be available on OSDF. We're working on that right now. And in other cases, it may be too hard to work with the original because it's in AWS or it's in Google, and the egress thing we don't want to deal with. So we might actually opt for copying it into OSDF, because you saw there's a boatload of petabytes available right now. And as long as we don't run out of disk space, I'm happy to host data just to make it accessible.
I see.
And due to the graces of the National Science Foundation, the CCSR program, every time Kevin gives somebody an award, there's a good chance that we get another 20% of that award in storage space. And so that would be a really good use of data that is community data, in just to make it accessible. And so all of this is yes. How exactly does it get done? We're cooking it, right?
Right. Well, I'll buy you a glass of wine later. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that problem also really well with the type of data sets we work in, and Manish similarly with the Earthscope community. So, by the way, I don't know how to put this up, but if it's possible, we can show it too. I think the data that's being delivered and namespace, so to say, through this, not being cataloged and findable was a gap. And making sure the data you work with comes with metadata or description, so we can put that through the ingestion process and really federate it into this catalog would be a way to do it. And by the way, through Earthscope, I'm sure Manish would like to add some things, because it's not just data that sits in an archive. This also includes the streams that could be cataloged and delivered through a similar, backend. Yeah. And graphs, knowledge graphs.
Ilkay mentioned the buzzword streams. We're also working with Sage to make Sage data available that they want to make available. So they're sort of accumulating an expansion of things. And then the one more thing that I'd really like to do, but we haven't really figured out yet how. Kurt mentioned that there are some things where the real value to the community is not necessarily the primary data that originally the organization who took the data is making available, but rather sub-selections that are much more interesting and much smaller. So there is the notion that we might want to do organized pre-processing and only save the output of the pre-processing and make that available to the community. And that then would have to be especially have a curation possibility via NDP. So there's a whole bunch of different ideas that we're sort of throwing around right now and trying to figure out what's the most useful. And so this is, as usual, a work in progress. And we're doing research as we provide value.
But there's a formal needs assessment process, so if you wanted to participate in that,
Yes.
I'm not sure our timelines are
Could
going
you
out
bring it up?
with the grant, but I will certainly reference that as part of our process.
In Frank's words, voila. So, in the functional demo or tutorial, this is what you would have seen. The part one, as I mentioned, let's see if I can mirror here. I hope I don't break something by mirroring. it's like better. We have a part 1 to our demo here, which is the setup. Right? You can go shift enter through these cells, and you can explore the code. One of the things about actually the notebook is in some of these cells, as you work through that, if you have, let's say, experience working in other platforms with other types of Python libraries, you should be able to bring it and execute in the notebook with the service in the backend. If you have any questions, if you have experience with other things and how to do that, Subhashish and the team can definitely show you some of that as well. And then we'll start running a conversation here. So this block, so to say, created those functions for us to run a conversation. And now we'll start running a conversation with Climate GPT itself. And the first question I'm just going to copy and paste here is what AI ML methods are used for wildfire data analysis. So when I run this, it takes sort of 30 seconds here, but at least when I ran it before, it has that context. It actually gives me, I know that area a little bit, so when I read it, it makes sense. Is it an average answer? 100%, yes. But it still gets it right. And I think improving through vectorization and other types of indexing of different documents is a part of that workflow to customize it for your area. And I think a part of our work here is to figure out how to make that easier for the community. Would you like to receive official Jupyter news? Probably not. Maybe I got a little too comfortable showing it. So once we do that, as you go through it, this is also going to be in the slides. Now we are going to start. This code basically can be replaced with other environments. But what you're seeing here, there's a file here, the NAIR task force document. And we are going to... I did. No, I didn't.
That's why it's not getting an answer back. You have to restart the current.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was your warning, right, on there. And so shift enter worked yesterday. What do I do today?
No, inside the conversation when it asks for the input, if you do shift enter, it will go.
Oh, I didn't do that. Okay. But now I can't, of course. Let me just go over it without executing it to get everyone to the wine. So here you're going to get some response. And at that point, when you get that response for, let's say, this question, it's going to be about climate topics. Maybe I did shift enter, you're right. And then let me get one question about NAIR. What committees does the report refer to? Or NAIR report, let's call it. But the answer you'll get here, let's call this the NAIR report. Is not going to be about the NAIR. So this actually, now, yesterday it brought that in a fraternity-related thing, and this one is about National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, titled something else, right? Assessment of the effect of changes in airline service at Ronald Reagan National Airport. NAIR report was titled that. So it sort of made up something about it. I'm gonna quit out of this one. So now if we bring that context, and as I mentioned, if you had other code with some other libraries, it should work here. Now we have the option of running the conversation with the near context and without the near context. It's still loading that document in. And I think I'm just going to go to post-context because I showed you already pre-context. And once it loads it, it should give us that near context. And let's ask the same question, actually, that we asked. So if you turn the context to be on through, sort to say, here, and ask the same question, so it talks about steering committee, operating entity, program management office, and ethics advisory board. So it got some things right about the NAIR task force recommendation itself. Of course, we can put our magnifying glass and look for really correctness of it. But at least it shows you, hopefully, how to bring and add context and bring your own documents into an existing model. And what we'd love, if you can imagine yourself as, if there are models out there that you'd like, can you bring and load those models through here and put some of those topics you care about to test some of these services, or bring the students into the fold to create maybe things like quick chatbots so that they could feel like they could be a part of this space. I think a small demo like that can achieve. Hopefully you felt like you learned something today, but I think having students who never thought they would do something, being able to do small things, will they be inspired to do more? That's one of the exercises. Jeff?
Yes. Okay. This is great. Even with the few bumps in the road that the network introduces. I know. You're doing great. My question, though, is how much consideration within, here are you giving to the idea of prompt engineering? So for the last, 3 or 4 quarters, I've been going to a seminar on Fridays on campus on generative AI. And one of the things that we sort of focus on is how do we structure our prompts to ensure high quality output? Yeah. And, just as with search or any, even with humans, when you don't frame the question correctly, you sometimes get, hallucinations or very, responses that are not applicable. You have some carefully curated questions here. But what kind of consideration are you giving generally to the idea of prompt engineering for quality answers? So that's a great question. And even here, you can do some prompt engineering to see the responses, right? And one of the things that we are analyzing is what are those workflows for prompt engineering that could be actually built into the platform? So we enable that. And what does it need to be saved about that in the platform? So it's not just trying back and forth, but there's a whole backend to prompt engineering. Yeah, and the context window, impacts that as well. So that's a part of the analysis of the, and Subhashish has done with a lot on that already as a part of our team, and also with different libraries. So, we showed you a model using a service deployment, but there are also stovepipes of different libraries, and what does it take to work across them and still do the same workflow? And whichever I have access to, I can use it. Sounds like a great survey paper.
Yes, I think we are on it. Yeah. The medium one is about to come out this week. You want to add to that?
Yeah, one small thing. if you go a little bit up of the notebook where we are declaring all those libraries. So here, if you look at this thing carefully, you will see that we declared the OpenAI base and the key. So we want to say here that whatever you developed with the OpenAI and the LangChain library, you could just immediately bring that thing and test with our model that how actually it's behaving. And even if you have better model in your mind, you could ask us. We'll happy to host that model in our server. So that's the generic way to putting this thing here.
Yeah, so this is a very important point. So I'm going to repeat it because how you would do it and would like to deploy it for your audience, if you have it, is something we'd like to do for everyone. So that model of, usage and user experience that different audiences should go through it, it's a part of the needs assessment. So definitely, we'd love to hear from you on that. And I think, is there more? We have one.
I'll be quick. I have a passion for citizen science, and I'm kind of curious whether you see citizen science being something that falls within the scope of democratization. And one of the motivating things in 2022, I tried to participate as a citizen in a MIT Lincoln Labs sponsored ML challenge, and I could not download the data. I couldn't participate because I couldn't access the data. I got 2 GPU rig at home. I do other things. I couldn't. And that was very frustrating to me. So, I have a kind of a passion for how to solve that. And I think it should be in the scope, but I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah, so as the NDP concept, the answer would be yes. NDP today, I think, will look for integrating with the communities in a more formal way. I think that's a formal engagement too, because if there's a challenge. So I think in the future, working with challenge providers like that and making sure data and the platforms that are running those services for the challenge are linked through NDP fits in the NDP context or concept. But I think today the priority is really building it for research and education communities, for more also the spectrum of it.
Yeah, and I think there's some identity and authentication sort of and security related challenges around that too, as you scale up the power of those platforms. So
absolutely.
I can see different sides, but I think your answer is actually a good one. So had MIT Lincoln Labs utilized a platform like this, then it might have allowed people to participate.
That's actually, maybe so is here, if you can talk more about that with you, but the data challenge concept, that being the mechanism to deliver educational context was picked particularly for that reason, because it applies to different mode of training in different environments. So in that sense, whoever is designing that challenge, if they're able to use NDP as a platform for their challenge with the capabilities in the backend and the cataloging and all of those hub components to make people collaborate through it. So that's a workflow that could be enabled. So finding those usage modes, these are what I was referring to as unknown unknowns or known unknowns. We can think of some of these, but we're hoping if we build a capable enough platform with the right safeguards in it, we'll be able to achieve that type of capacity. Thank you. And just for my peace of mind, did anyone else get a Jupyter? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have about 10.
About 20 running right now.
Oh, 20 are running. So, I think I'll call victory. Thank you. And again, the slides will be available and the demo that we showed is available. Thank you.